Johnny, thank you so much for making time in what I think is probably, I don't know, 9 a.m., what maybe in your part of the world?
8 a.m. here, lights just starting, sun's just starting to come up yet. But
8 a.m. Yeah, well, it's very early for this sort of thing, but thank you very much. I just wanted to do our usual interview layout that we've been doing for a very long time with various agency owners, but I wanted to get you to kick off and maybe tell us a bit about yourself, your agency, and how it differs from the rest of the field.
okay, yeah. So first of all, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on. Early mornings are fine, gets us out of bed. So yeah, so Vanquish have been going in this form for about 2.5 years. My background is kind of over 20 years in physical product and brand building. So I've had various companies and then transcended into e-commerce companies. Been involved then in sale to private equity, and joined the board there and assisted with running one of my businesses beyond that, and decided that corporate life wasn't for me. So we built Vanquish with one thing in mind, which was that we wished that we had this kind of a service and a product when we were running our own brands, really. So we just found a huge hole, didn't exist. So effectively, we built a model for end-to-end international expansion and scale, and we feel that we do that in a very unique way. And effectively, we're channel agnostic, so we don't rely just upon Amazon. And we've got international expansion as a core competence, whereas a lot of other agencies will obviously look to outsource that kind of thing and kind of stitch together a patchwork solution. And finally, our accelerator model, which usually comes after the full expansion stuff, is we call it our alliance model, which is differing completely to other accelerators because it's a win-win kind of shared revenue scenario. So that's got a lot of people excited. So in a nutshell, that's what we're doing.
Interesting. I think the thing that caught my eye is the whole expansion mentality. Like I see in my LinkedIn feed, you're the guy. It's always a comment. It's like you got to go multi-channel, got to go global, and that's what caught my eye when I think of you. But I guess just on that point, then, in terms of like content, so you've got some great case studies on your website. Talking about Occo and Lamel. Tell us about how multi-channel expansion plays a role in those sorts of scenarios, if you can.
Yeah, so obviously every brand is different, and it depends on the site. So two that you've mentioned there, one is a personal care product this big, another is a homewares product probably this big. So just depends entirely. So for some, Amazon presents an obvious solution to just go straight into a new market, and we can leverage things like FBA, and it's a great way in. But for others with oversized products and things that are a little bit more a bit more big and bulky, if you like, the scenario is totally different, and you have to kind of look at where does outside fulfillment come into play so that we're not affecting Amazon's inventory scores, and kind of what does outbound freight look like. And so in that scenario, it kind of naturally presents itself that Amazon's not always the only solution. I think particularly with things like home and lifestyle products, we'll often look at that and see that 20 to 30% of sales are coming from places like Wayfair, Overstock, Bed Bath and Beyond, places like that. Well, the two have merged now, actually. But so yeah, off Amazon channels, totally depending on brand. But I think generally speaking, brands that are aggressive and consider themselves a true brand that want to go out there and build something meaningful with a strong exit multiple or a good solid retained profit are looking at multi-channel. I think everybody's everybody seems to be excited about that. It's just navigating that.
Get it. I just want to drill down on something there. Like you just talked about building a proper brand and getting a nice exit multiple. Is that through the perspective of, if you're a single channel reliant brand, you have this centralization risk. So when you talk about that, are you talking about like diversification of revenue being a good thing, or it's a great opportunity and you can show more growth? Like what lens are you kind of like applying in terms of like multi-channel relating to a good exit multiple?
Well, I think obviously my background and experience with private equity gave me a lot of insight into the exit piece, and I think whether that event will actually culminate in an actual exit, or whether it will continue to be a business that you'll own forever, I think the end goal is the same, and that is to maximize the EBITDA in the business. So I think when you look at multiples, you can kind of see the progression. So I think I've done some posts on this, and we have some infographics that we show around. But effectively, if you imagine that a wholesale company selling to retail stores has probably got a 1 or 2 times multiple, you can kind of follow that through as a progression as to how that works in terms of going online is probably pivots into a 3x. Going international probably pivots into a 4 or 5x, and then that diversification of risk, which you kind of touched on, is particularly attractive to institutional acquirers, because obviously the less eggs in one basket, the more exciting and saleable and solid a company is. So absolutely, the multiples go up in a business if they're spread across their kind of sales sources, in a nutshell.
Get it. That's clear.
Yeah.
So looking at the other side of the coin here, obviously lots of folks talk about multi-channel being a distraction. Maybe that's something that comes out in a particular region, but clearly you have a different view. And I know we just touched on why you have a different view, the PE background, but what is the foundation for that perspective of, multi-channel not being a distraction, and actually it is a really good thing for the business?
Well, I think, ultimately what's a distraction and what's not a distraction. I think everything in some way is a distraction in our business, but it comes down to what else are you going to do? I think if you're kind of at 30% and you've got another 70% you could do on Amazon because you're constantly out of inventory, or you're constantly running out of ad budget and you're not pushing the throttle in various areas, then absolutely, focus in and exploit one channel. But what we're seeing more and more is that, brands are coming to us and saying, we've either peaked and plateaued at a certain level on one channel, and let's say, for example, that's Amazon, and we're in many markets, I know particularly the UK and the USA, you're seeing that flip on its head and say it's actually reducing because there's more competition. Ad spend is going up because of that. So it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So what do? Well, you can either just keep pushing harder and kind of watching your ACOS go up and, continue to spend on ads, and you could probably bring in new SKUs, which again, new SKUs are a risky thing. 1 in 10 new SKUs fail. So it's kind of like a new SKU is like a new business effectively, and all that comes with building that traction. So you can either look at it as a distraction, or you can look at it as, well, actually, for a lot of people, particularly now, there seems to be more excitement around, or in some cases, not even excitement, just absolute, desperation of how do we get past this plateau and this wall that we've hit. So, not a distraction at all, but a necessity for those people. So I think it comes down to, again, as you mentioned, the true brand scenario. If you really want to push push past being an Amazon seller, because being frank, you know, being an Amazon seller, it's not your business, it's Amazon's business, and you're kind of a part of their business. If you want to go beyond that and become something bigger, you've got to have, you know, challenges, or call them distractions or whatever. That's, I guess, why we're all in business.
Yep. No, I hear you. Now, throwing another lens on this, how do you think this multi-channel, multi-geography will affect agencies? How does that, like, obviously go back a couple of years, none of them would talk about it. Now it seems to be more of a popular topic. So what's your perspective? How will it affect agencies going forward?
Yeah, well, we're seeing the good question. We're seeing the effect of that on a daily basis. Really, I think we don't go out to, you know, personally, we don't go out to compete with agencies. We support them, and I think that's a good thing as well. So as well as, you know, having our direct relationships with brands, we're also supporting agencies, you know, and helping them to do this piece. And I think, going back to what you say, yeah, it's a challenge for them, because there's kind of two camps. You know, brands are coming to them and saying, we'd like to expand overseas, and agencies are either saying, yes, we can do it, and going off and trying to patch things together and come up with a solution, which is dangerous and risky. You know, for a brand, it's not something to kind of just you know, sellotape together. But we are seeing that happening, and, you know, alternately, we're seeing brands say, look, we need to gear up to be able to do this, but it's, you know, it's a vastly specialist area. So we've kind of set out to say to them, look, you don't need to go off and try to learn how to do this stuff and build the capabilities in-house. We've already got it. We can support you and help you to do that. So we've got an agency program, and we're helping lots of agencies on a daily basis to do that. So absolutely, you know, they need to be au fait with it, but they don't necessarily have to be able to do it in-house. They can rely on a partnership to do it.
Get it? That's very interesting, and certainly opens up a lot of opportunities for you. Now, I guess changing gears just a little bit. Next three questions, I want to talk about technology, events, and just new markets in general. So the technology one I wanted to hit you with was, you know, and it's probably good timing given what you're probably looking at in terms of making a decision. As agencies move like their clients into multiple geos and markets and what have you, you know, how do you see kind of technology playing a role in that? Do you, like, for example, do you think new tools will pop up, or, you know, agencies will revise their technology stacks? Like, where's your thinking at in terms of the technology side of agencies moving geo and multi-channel?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's obviously heaps and heaps of new tools coming out to assist with it, and, you know, I think, again, there's two sides to it. There's the AI conversation, and there's the you know, straight kind of tool conversation. And I think AI, I was having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Martin Zerudo, last week, and we were talking about AI and the effect that it's having on some brands and agencies. And I think the big mistake with that is that a lot of them are relying directly upon AI to just do the job. So they're just saying, look, things like translations when you're going overseas, they're just saying, let the tool do the job. And, you know, building listings, there's a tool for that. It'll do it in 30 seconds or whatever, and so on, you know, right across the board of what's available. And I think from an AI perspective, again, it's dangerous, because humans have got this awful lazy habit of thinking that a tool will just do the job. But, you know, I think the real standouts are the people and brands that still understand that it takes brains and a real, you know, creative human being to inform an AI tool how to do its job. So you can tell a listing that's been generated even by the best AI tool. You can just tell. And if you're native to a country like France and you see listings that have been AI generated, you can see them a mile away if you're a native French buyer. So it's going to be destructive. So I think there's an opportunity for people to say, well, yeah, we need the tools, but we have to leverage them and combine our own sensibility with it as well. So that's kind of the AI side of it. And I think, tool wise, absolutely, there's no way that you can go multi-channel, multinational, and blow things up without a very, very hefty tool stack, and obviously things like Merchant Spring are just absolutely essential. Being able to see from one dashboard all of your sales and all of your the brands that you're managing, things like that, it's going to quickly run out of control, and it does for many people. You'd be amazed how many are still using spreadsheets and flicking across 20 screens and disparate data, incoherent reporting. It's still rife. So I think absolutely it's crucial when you're going multi-channel and global to get it right.
Get it. All right. I kind of expected that answer, but you definitely delivered it in a very polished way. So
yeah.
Next thing was events, right? So are you big on events, like e-commerce events, and which ones, if any, are you planning to attend in 2024?
Well, again, we used to do kind of all of the ones that we could do, but I think just before we press record, I think we both agree that bandwidth is a major issue now, and kind of getting your priorities right and where you're going to expend your time is just crucial. Really, it's busy. Everybody wants us from one direction to another. So we do one that's kind of non-negotiable is Prosper. Obviously that's the one that I think it's great for networking with other providers, tool providers, brands, anybody that we kind of really need to connect with. It's a great place to do it. So we'll do that. But otherwise, we're kind of more focused on, rather than industry, we're kind of more focused on trade show events that brands are exhibiting at, so we can get around them, talk to them, touch and feel the product. So we get people out to as many of those ones as we can across the US and Europe, really.
Yeah, I get it. Okay. That is great, because I'm now looking forward to bumping into you next year.
No, it'd be good. Look forward to it.
The final question, and I'm trying to steer your answer a little bit here because I'm quite interested. So since you've got such a global multi-channel view, right? If you're in the UK, or you tell me the answer, but if you're in a particular country that you're familiar with, where are you seeing the most potential at the moment? So just give us like a geo and a channel. So if you're in the US, what's the most opportunistic geo and channel? Or maybe if you're in the UK, what's the most potential new geo and channel?
Okay, so obviously, like all of these things, it's not a straightforward answer, but as as straightforward as it can possibly be. I think we talk a lot about manufacturing blue oceans. So it sounds like a bit of jargon, but we talk about saying, well, if the market's saturated for somebody, it's it's a blue ocean for somebody else, like the one man's meat is another man's poison type scenario. And the reason for that is because if you're a European brand, let's say you're a British brand, and we do a lot of British brands into America. American brands, American consumers have a great affinity with British brands, for example. So everything they perceive as, not everything, that's an overstatement, but they perceive a lot of what comes out of Britain as being quality and with prestige and so on. So you've kind of got to work to that and ensure that your brand's positioned to that, rather than kind of going in and trying to beat people at their own game. So in that sense, there's tons of room. It's not saturated if you come into it with the right mindset. And the same is vice versa. If you can come into Europe, bearing in mind that only 2% of, for example, 2% of US brands ever cross the Atlantic and sell in Europe, which is crazy. So, you know, and given that there's 60 odd percent less sellers in the e-commerce market in Europe, it's just wide open. So the opportunity kind of to do that is dependent on where you're coming from, and you can manufacture that blue ocean. But in terms of, you know, where the big opportunities are, we kind of let's take the UK for example. We'll kind of say that the US is the next best place to go, and vice versa for US to Europe, really. And the last frontier is Asia. So, you know, Asia's got huge, obviously phenomenal opportunity, but it's the last frontier of e-commerce, in my opinion, because it's the most difficult market to conquer. But yeah, you know, we're seeing Asia with a 12% annual growth. And even places like pop-up places like MENA and the UAE, you know, that's kind of an outsider that's emerging quickly, and they're at, I think, 12% annual growth. So we're seeing a lot there. And in terms of channels, again, we could pick any example, but in the US, for example, depending on the brand, if it's a home and lifestyle brand, which we tend to work with a lot, not exclusively, but a lot, a nice combination of something like Amazon, which is advertising hungry, combined with something like Wayfair or Overstock, which is, you know, more dropship friendly. We're seeing that does wonders for an overall tacos in the business, and kind of does wonders for the bottom line. So something like that as a way in would be great. You know, hope that gives you a good enough answer to that question.
No, that's great. That's great, because especially you mentioning Wayfair and basically anything that's not Amazon, that's great. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Look, we just hit 22 minutes, and I am conscious of time. So firstly, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure people listening to this will actually find it quite insightful. You know, how you think about the different markets and how it ties to value and so on. So really appreciate it, Jonny, and yeah, hope to have you back for another session.
Yeah, likewise. No, thanks so much for your time, and I'll go and start my day with a cup of English tea, I think.
Good one, mate. Talk soon.
Okay, great. Take care.